Many job hopping, more people clinging to their jobs in the tough economy, which has big ramifications for employees and their companies in general. Here with more about what you need to know is certified financial planner Bobbi Rebell. She is the personal finance expert as cardrates.com. You'll correct my mispronunciation, forgive me, but thank you for joining us and for helping us to understand what is job hugging and where does it come from?
So you got it right the second time. It's
Okay.
Rebel. Thank you so much. And yes, I am with Card Rates. So job hugging is something very interesting because we do, as you mentioned so clearly, we do have a history of people going job hopping, especially with younger generations. They don't tend to stay in jobs very long. It was sort of this myth of the older generations that would stay in a job for life. But now people are appreciating the stability of having that ongoing paycheck, the health insurance benefits, for example. And they hear in the news, about all of these the general trend with the job market is a bit concerning, right? We hear that it's that much harder to get a job. We hear about ghosting on LinkedIn. We hear about AI taking all of our jobs. So it's no surprise that people want to stay where they are. Especially, I will say, a lot of people being pushed to go back into the office, that back to office trend is part of this because the employers now have a little bit more leverage because people are worried. So this is a really interesting trend, and I'm glad you're bringing it up.
I'm hearing you say, and you will correct me if I am misunderstanding you. I'm thinking of, maybe college graduates, but also others who maybe hear some advice and are like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm just going to hop. And they're like, oh, wait a second. After trying it for a few times, I don't have any health insurance. I don't have stability here or there or anything. And they're like, okay, wait, I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to really cling to this.
Exactly. Well, we have, the rise of social media had all of these influencers talking about things like the van life and how great it was to work for yourself. But the truth is, if you work for yourself, you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. As you said, you don't have health insurance. You don't know that you can pay your rent, right? And at a certain point, you want those things as you get older. We all want to have that financial security, that financial wellness, and there is a new appreciation for it. All this, the gig economy at first sounded so great. You have control over your schedule, but then what people find is you don't actually because you're always on call, because you're always working. And the great thing about having a 9 to 5 job, if it truly is that when you're done at 5, in theory, you're done and you kind of have your time back. And that's why I think people are also embracing back to office to some degree, because if your employer is having you come into the office and your work hours are much more defined and you have those guardrails up, you can, to a large degree, or at least more, be off duty when you're not at work. And so a lot of people realize that there's this backlash going on with the at work all the time because you're never in the office. You're sort of always on call. And people appreciate having that defined role of their work because it is in some ways a better work-life balance.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of, beware of the trends that swing too far in one direction. Pay attention that there are some tried and true things, weigh both sides, use some critical thinking. And I'm wondering as I'm talking to you, and if you don't know the answer, that's okay, but what qualifies as a trend here? I mean, we're talking about big swings in what people are really doing and experimenting with that is costing them, but at the same time, and forgive me for the two-part question, sometimes we need to learn the hard way and just experiment and just find out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how to answer that, but the truth is, I think there's a new appreciation
Yeah.
for the steadiness of being in the office. There's a new appreciation for security over maybe you might not get as much opportunity, but because I think, they sort of had this mixed message with the younger generations where they wanted this freedom and they're sort of, saying how the gig economy gives you this freedom, but now they're realizing that it doesn't necessarily, that sometimes having that steady paycheck gives you freedom to have more work-life balance, which is something that I think the younger generation really, really values. And they realize that the best path to get there, and this is where the trend comes in, may not be being your own boss, or it may not be job hopping constantly. Maybe the best way to have the most freedom in your personal life is to have stability in your work life. So you're not constantly acclimating to a new job. You're not constantly looking for the next bigger, better bonus or whatever it's going to be, right? You can kind of have that under control so your attention and your joy can come from what happens outside the office, because that's sort of tied up with a boat. You know what you're doing. You know that you might get, if you hit these benchmarks, you're going to get that raise when it comes time to get raises once a year, versus having no idea when things are coming because you're constantly job hopping or you're in the gig economy working for yourself. That steadiness is just much more appreciated for what it can do for what young people value. You might have defined, vacation days where you feel like you're really off, right? And you build them up. If you're somewhere longer, you get more vacation days and you know you're going to get that raise. And so I think there's a new appreciation for that.
Some quality perspective. As one economist, I think Thomas Sowell said, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Thank you, Bobbi Rebell, for joining us.
I like that.
All right, Ilona.
Thanks for having me.